Sounds
But
good.
today we do have Need Essentials, realwatersports.com, and of course, NVS Fins. Did you go skiing last week?
Yeah.
Snowboarding?
Snowboarding. Yeah.
Did you stay warm?
You know what? I went snowboarding in Utah and it was friggin' cold. It was like 5 degrees, super cold, that cold front that moved through the country. And thank God I had my Need Essentials puffy jacket because I was
There you
toasty,
go.
oasty, bros. I was feeling warm. My
Where
friends
in
were looking.
Utah?
Brian Head,
Yes,
southern
dude.
Utah.
How good is Brian Head?
It's pretty fun. I mean, what was good about it was the snow because there was no snow up in northern. There wasn't anything up in Salt Lake. The snow was in southern Utah. So it was like 2.5, 3 feet of powder and 5, 10 degrees out. So it was like dusty powder. It was ridiculous. And yeah, I'm a big fan. I've been going to Bryan Head since probably 1980.
Good for you. That it's such an interesting little town. The way that somebody explained it to me was they thought they were going to be the next Aspen or something. So they built, all those condos and all this kind of infrastructure, and it just never quite took off. So, but the benefit for us now is last time I went there, I think lift tickets were like $40 in the middle of the week. The mountain's big. There was nobody out. It was 9 degrees, like you said, and excellent conditions.
Yeah, we didn't have any weights. There were no weights in any lines at all. And it's also really good in the summer for mountain biking.
Is it?
I'm sort of starting to become one of those mountain biker dudes.
Wow. Look at you, multidisciplinary.
Well, it's for cardio, right? Like I haven't done it yet, but I'm thinking about pulling the trigger because my buddies were like, yeah, they were talking me into it. Because I don't like to run. Do you like to run? I don't like to run.
I do.
Oh, you do?
I do.
That's
Yeah.
right. You're a runner.
I did get into cycling a few years,
Not
10 years
road
ago.
cycling, mountain biking. It's a different.
That might hook me because the road cycling thing, I tried my best and I was like, it takes 4 hours to get a proper workout in, and I don't have that much time.
Yeah, I just want to spend an hour and a half cruising through trails and getting cardio going crazy, and also working on my lower body because that's where the chicken legs exist.
Leg day. Well, shout out to Utah and shout out to needessentials.com,
Oh, yeah.
needessentialsusa.com if you're here.
Yeah.
Not just for mountains, but for wetsuits as well. I just talked to somebody who got their first Need Essentials a couple of weeks ago. And he said he cannot believe that he was spending double the amount of money previously, year after year after year.
I know, right? That's kind of the, the thing you hear the most is like, this is an incredibly great wetsuit. And it's what a great value it is too,
Totally. And we also owe a shout out to realwatersports.com in North Carolina, surfboard retailer. They've got all sorts of everything that you would need beyond surfboards as well, but they do have a 1,500 board inventory that they can ship to you anywhere in the world for one flat fee. And it's actually guaranteed to show up blemish free as well.
Yeah, the crew at Real Water Sports, super great customer service. They're going to take care of you from the time you click onto their website to the time you wax your board. It's a good call and good people, and realwatersports.com. That's the place to go. Well, I want to tell you about those Taylor Knox NVS fins. Have you seen those?
No, I'm not sure.
They sent me the Taylor Knox NVS fins, and I've misplaced them. And this isn't an ask for more of them. They must be in a board somewhere because they're not in my fin drawer. But a friend of mine was just Sean Madison was just showing me his NVS Taylor Knox fins. And they're basically the big twin fin with a little like notch off the tip. And they're supposed to be real sparky. But all the NVS, yeah, no, they're killer. I wish I had some to show you. I showed you some. Didn't I have
not
some in
those?
my hand? Oh.
You did, but not those. I've seen, or I have the Taylor's Arc thruster fins.
These are the Arc twins.
Got it.
Okay. Same design.
Got it. So surfnvs.com, or you can grab them at realwatersports.com, actually.
There you go. Wow. Yeah, guy. Yeah, freaking guy. Yeah, guy. Welcome, everybody. It's Spit. It is Tuesday. It's March 1st, David. It's the year 2022. And it's good to be alive and, it's good to be alive. How's that?
Better,
Leave it there.
better than the alternative. But I think maybe that's in light of all of the biblical catastrophes happening around the world right now. I mean, there's crazy flooding in Queensland and New South Wales. Obviously, the Ukraine situation. Somebody's home slid into the ocean on the North Shore of Hawaii in the last 48 hours.
Wow.
I'm not laughing. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. It's all happening in
Yeah.
in a short period of time.
It's been a crazy week. Again, I was snowboarding when all this stuff went down in the Ukraine, and kind of feels like, to me, it felt like, you know where you were on 9/11,
Totally.
you know where you were on January 6th, and you know where you were when Russia invaded and brought war upon the Ukraine, not the Ukraine, but it's Ukraine. You don't want to say the Ukraine, for the record.
It's like wedge, right?
Yeah.
The bodyboard or the body surf spot's just wedge. It's not the wedge.
It's another one, church. If you call it churches, you're a kook. It's church, because there was a church. There was a church there. That's why it's called church.
Right.
They used to go surf the church.
So why do we call it the Ukraine?
I don't, but many people do, and Ukrainians don't like it because it's kind of the way the Russians refer to it. And of course, yeah. So it's Ukraine.
I'm just curious how that even starts, or why it sounds better in your head. You know what I mean?
It's Ukraine.
Okay. Fair enough. Thanks for the engagement. Yeah. So happy to be alive. Happy to be like here. Don't want to be irreverent with stupid surf gossip and news in light of everything else that's happening in the world. Yeah. But so we'll state our gratitude right out of the gates for the fact that we live in the safest place possible during what's happening right now. Because there are a lot of less fortunate people who are, if not directly affected, they know people who are affected,
Yeah, it's weird. I find myself going, gosh, is there some way that we, David and Scott, as podcasters, or the listeners as surfers, or the grander surf community can somehow do something? That's kind of where I find myself today. Like, what can I do? In fact, on NPR this morning, there was this cake company here in North Park in San Diego. And this woman is from Ukraine, and it's called Oh My Cake instead of Oh My God. I think it's called Oh My Cake. And it's a store, and you can go there and buy cakes, and she'll give a portion of it to the, I don't know, I don't even know where it goes. But my point is that every time I see something that's like, hey, go fund me or give money and we'll put some of it over here to this cause, excuse me, I'm a little wary. So I'm searching for that thing that we can do, David, as a community. What can we do? How can we help? I want to help.
I haven't researched it, but yeah, you're right. You have to be very wary, especially in today's age where anybody can set up a GoFundMe or Kickstarter or whatever. I've actually seen horror stories on social media of some influencers allocating funds inappropriately.
Really?
Yeah.
Do tell.
I don't know the backstory, and I only read kind of the headline, and so it might not even be true or accurate, but some influencer was being vilified. But at any rate, there is surf news in the world, and so we can add some levity to the day with that.
Well, here's something that maybe we can find something out about. The ISA, which has a bunch of international member organizations. There's one, Ukraine is a member of the ISA. Ukraine has a surf team.
Wow.
So it seems to me that that's sort of our in, like if we need like an in, it feels like it would be through the ISA and through the Ukraine, Surfing Association, USA.
Who is the Ukrainian surfer?
It doesn't matter.
I'm just curious. I'm just curious.
No, we do want to know who it is so we can communicate with them and find out the best way to do things,
Yeah. Let's get that person on the show.
Yeah. So if you listen to this show and you're an ISA person, help us hook up with the Ukraine Surfing Association or Surfing Federation or whatever it is, so we can help, so we can drive our listeners to help. And I don't mean like give surfboards. I mean like, let's give some money or give some food or give real help. You know
Yeah,
what I'm
I
saying?
like it. I like it. I do know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I've got CT updates for you, Scott, from last week. I've
Yes.
got thoughts on Kelly from the pros. I've got Stab in the Dark to review. Where would we like to begin?
Let's go with your first thing, the CT update.
Gabriel Medina out for Portugal. Baron Mamiya into Portugal. Moana Jones out for Portugal. Lots of stuff to discuss. Let's start with Moana Jones. She is ranked 3rd in the world. Moana is still within striking range of the mid-season cut, but she's only in that position because she got a wild card at Pipeline. She won that event. She did not do good at Sunset. She narrowly lost to Stephanie Gilmore. She got into Sunset by virtue of a wild card because she won Pipe. So we're in a predicament now where she's not on tour, but she's in 3rd place and she is not invited into the wild card position in Portugal. Instead, there's 2 wild cards and they're being used by Tia Blanco, who won the Ultimate Surfer television reality show in order to get a wild card, and also Bronte McCullough, who won, or she's earned it because she had the highest rankings on last year's QS tour.
Okay, well, this is a huge problem. And the thing that you stated that I think is of importance here is that Moana Jones Wong surfed well at Sunset and she barely lost to Stephanie Gilmore. It wasn't like she didn't catch waves at Sunset and she's only a pipe specialist and that's where she belongs. And that's why we're not sending her to Portugal, because really she's a pipe specialist. She actually is a really well-rounded surfer. And she went out at Sunset on her backhand and almost got through and lost to a 7-time world champ. So there's a problem here. Like there's a situation here where the WSL needs to figure out, this is going to happen. This reminds me of what used to happen with the Triple Crown, where there's a guy that's in contention for the Triple Crown, but he's not invited to Pipe. So how can he really be in? So it's the same type of thing. When you have wild cards that do well early in the season, I mean, the situation explains itself. It's not right. And I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how you squeeze. I think what you should do is kick Tia Blanco out. Nothing against Tia. I want to see her surf in the CT this year, but let's find another place for her later on in the season. Why not continue the mojo with Moana Wong here and give her Tia's spot? Tia's obviously not in the running for the world title. She will get her chance to surf on the CT, like maybe even give Tia 2 chances, because
She gets 3.
She gets 3 already.
Yeah, well, she earned, that was the grand prize was 3 wildcard spots.
Okay, well, let's give her 4 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, let's make it right by Tia, because I'm not here to not, to take away Tia's chances, because she's a great surfer in her own right. But I feel like you can't not have Moana Jones. Is it Wong? How do you say her last name?
Moana Jones Wong.
Jones Wong. You can't have Moana not surfing. She's 3rd in the world, for God's sake. And frankly, I bet she would do good at Super Tubes.
So to add to that argument, given the current standings, if Moana merely shows up to 2 of the next 3 events and wins 1 single heat, she would likely have more than enough points to end up in the top 10 after the first 5 events.
Wow, that's great research. Did you do that, or did somebody send you that?
Stab, it was written on Stab Magazine's article. And so they interviewed Jessie Miley Dyer, and Jessie, who is the obviously WSL Senior Vice President of Tours and something else, she said Tia's wild cards were decided in collaboration with our general managers in looking through our different sponsor commitments. She will have J-Bay, El Salvador, and Portugal. The question to her was, were these predetermined before the season started? And that was her response, which sounds so corpo And also it's decided with our general managers. Okay, so that's deflecting the blame to nameless people and then saying in light of our different sponsor commitments. So, Mayo, who sponsors the Brazil event, or I'm sorry, sponsors the Portugal event, if they have an athlete, they can put them in the Portugal event. If Rip Curl has an athlete, they can put them into an event. So they're trying to get TIA into events that probably there's no sponsor conflicts. My thought here, kind of in relation to or in response to what you said, is there's two different things to consider. It does TIA's surfing. Not TIA. Does Moana surfing actually warrant a place on tour? Because you and I are caught up in this story of her, a wild card winning pipeline. And we're like, we just want this story to go on. We're committed. We love her. It's so awesome. So let's keep the push going. But the reality is she didn't earn a spot on tour. These other girls did earn a spot on tour, not necessarily the wild cards, but let her earn her spot on tour and then she can go surf in Portugal. She was never obligated to surf in other events based on the one wildcard gift that she got. And then she got two. So she should be extra grateful.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, actually. I see your point. And you're right. Maybe I'm too caught up in the Moana Jones Wong story, and maybe it's just going to be wah, wah, like
it could very well be. She can go out and lose in first round, and then you and I are like, you guys shouldn't have put her in. That was stupid.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all I'm suggesting, I guess, is next time. I feel like if you're a wild card, if you're given a wild card early in the season at Pipe or Sunset, or actually anywhere during the season, now that I think of it, it should be very clear. Like if before I go to give you the jersey, I need you to look me in the eye and repeat after me. If you win this event, it does not mean, and in fact, you will not probably get a spot in the next event. Okay. So to be on tour, you have to earn it like the rest of the girls. Consider yourself lucky. Here's your jersey. Win the event. Good luck. You're not going to Sunset. Whereas like this, oh, well, we're giving her a spot at Sunset because we're in Hawaii. We got to make sure everything's cool. We'd hate for this Hawaiians to egg us, like to tear down the scaffolding. We'd hate for the Hui to come and show up and Eddie to just go, want to walk, and I'm not saying that, I don't even know if they're thinking like that, but you get what I'm saying. Like, let's make it very, very clear. And oh, by the way, if you don't agree to this, you don't get to surf as a wild card in the pipe. Now, I don't think they did that. Instead, they've built you and me and the rest of the surf consumers up, and we're caught up in this storm, this this great story here, and we want to see it play out, as you mentioned, and that's where we're at. And you make a lot of sense.
And so, by the way, Moana hasn't complained. I haven't seen Moana complain publicly about her not getting the wild card into Portugal. It was a groundswell of people involved in the surf industry who said that this is a sham. And they do have a point. And I guess what this highlights is something that we talk about all the time, but haven't really defined, which is a lot of the WSL rules that actually are pretty subjective end up shooting themselves in the foot. And this is sometimes interference rules, priority rules, whatever. Their objective is to make these things black and white. It's to make it objective. But surfing is kind of impossible to make objective, and it should always remain subjective. So it's a fool's errand. And they need to design something a little more savvy where there's more subjectivity allowed. Because if their whole goal with a wild card surfing in an event like Pipeline is to have a Cinderella story. Well, they had it. And now they've got to shoot their foot in it, shoot themselves in the foot because they have these arbitrary rules defined previously, or by the way, this also dovetails with something else that I've been talking about, which is why are they doing a reality show? Oh, well, now because they did a reality show, it's infecting their main product, And so infection. It really is. And so it's cutting into it. And so don't set up these Cinderella stories and then get in your own way because of these arbitrary rules, ultimately.
Yeah, I'm okay with rules. I think, but as long as they make tons of sense, You know, like
Yeah.
me saying, hey, there needs to be a rule that if you put on this jersey, you do not get to carry on through into the sunset event, even if you win at pipe.
But
No,
that's a stupid rule. You know what I mean? Like
I
it
don't,
makes more sense to allow them to, but they need more.
I don't care if it's stupid or not. My point is that it's clear. I guess what I'm referring to is Jesse's corpo speak, which is like, it would be so much better if Jesse said, hey, look, everyone knows we have the rule that if you, when I go to give you the jersey, you nod in agreement and repeat after me that, yes, I understand it. Then look, stupid rule or not, everyone sees it. It's out in the open. But this whole like, well, we talked it over with the general managers and we deflected it here and they decided, well, because of corporate, you know,
Different sponsor
I'd
commitments.
much rather just have her say, I don't know, you know,
You know what
I can't write the press
prefer?
release right now, but
I can write it for her. Here's what I would prefer, and here's what Dana White would do.
yeah,
He'd push Jesse aside, grab the mic, and be like, hey, Moana, you want to surf in Portugal? Get on the QS, earn your spot. We'll see you there next year. Boom.
Thank you.
Walk aside.
Thank you.
That's what they need to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly what I agree. We need like that kind of clarity, that kind of, okay, well, agree with it or not, we know where they stand, you know?
Right.
Like right now, we're like, who knows? Maybe Moana will get a wild card into J-Bet.
or then, yeah, it's just, again, lack of direction, lack of vision, and then lack of communicating that, whatever that vision is, to the end user. It's kind of like, oh, we'll just get out of the way. We'll try to put out a little fire here. We'll try to build up some stoke over here, but we won't really see it to fruition. Then we'll get out of the way if the fire starts to go some other, if social media takes the narrative from us, you know?
Well, in many ways, I mean, you know, I guess if I was the WSL, I could also spin this as a good thing. Like, look, we have a great story in the pipeline winner. We have a great story in Tia Blanco. Oh, by the way, people are talking about when Scott and David are talking about women surfing right now. Ding, 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 ding. That's a good thing. You know, there's a lot of ways that you could be. And oh, by the way, I'm not sure about this, David, but I would imagine that Moana Jones Wong is seated number one at the pipe event next year. So her story will continue.
Yeah. Well, yes, that's probably true. Part of what I'm talking about, though, about like the diffusing their own storylines is, do you even remember the Tia Blanco storyline at this point? Like,
Ultimate Surfer.
Right. But, you know, like bringing her back now in Portugal, if it is to capitalize off of what they did over here in reality TV, the chasm between is so vast that they have to reintroduce her, run a bunch of highlights packages, remind us why we all care, why we should care. And they're not doing themselves any favors. Now would be the time to put Moana in.
Well, look, you and I, if we were running the WSL and it was Tia's first event after winning Ultimate Surfer, we would catch up the audience. We would bring the audience up to speed.
She would have been pushed right into pipeline as far as I'm concerned.
You
know what I mean?
Hot.
Like,
yeah,
coming off of the Ultimate Surfer, straight into pipeline. Yeah. Let's see what you're made of.
Yeah, but even there is a chasm. When did Ultimate Surfer end?
Good question.
Did you even watch it?
It ended, should have ended sooner. Let me put it that way.
I never watched one episode, but
I appreciate that. But here, my allegiance is to the listeners, Scott. I watched it for them just so I could complain about it for like 3 months straight. I just need content. I did actually watch it. I pretty much watched every episode, if not fully engaged. And I love surfing. I want to watch surfing as much as possible. And I was not engaged. And I don't anticipate watching another season of it.
Which is better, Ultimate Surfer or watching a Nazare event?
Oof.
Or just watching a Nazare.
Nazare.
You're not.
I mean, they're both. I would rather watch Ozark than either. Right. But Nazare via the 100-foot wave, I'd watch that.
Yeah, that was really done. That was really well done. Huh?
So back to my question, I need you to give me an answer.
Oh,
yes or no? Does Moana's surfing deserve a spot on tour?
I can't answer that with any sort of really, any authority, because I haven't seen. All I've seen of her is at Pipe.
Me too.
And so I don't know. I just don't know.
I've seen her at Pipe and like a couple waves at Sunset during that comp.
How did she surf it at Sunset? Because I didn't see it.
She surfed good.
Okay.
She surfed good.
So
But it wasn't,
I
I mean,
sensed,
it wasn't like commanding like the way that her pipe performance was. She looked comfortable out there. She looked like she'd be able to trade sixes with the various competitors. She lost to Steph with like a 0.06. And you could have argued that she should have won that heat,
Yeah.
but it wasn't a definitive performance.
yeah. So we don't know. I wish I could say
I
yes
don't know
or
either.
no. I just
Yeah.
don't know.
But you
But
can
I
make the
bet
argument
we could
if Super
probably,
Tubos, if Super Tubos is barreling and pumping, then she would be the bet out there.
that's kind of that's what I'm saying. I agree with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I bet we could search on the internet and find some footage of her, like wherever at Koala Basin or Ala Moana or so, somewhere where it's like more realistic to
Rippable.
what she would be surfing on the CT, like in wherever Bells.
Yeah. Well, all that being said,
Speaking of Tia Blanco,
I do like Tia Blanco.
you do, don't you?
I do.
What is it? What is it? Why do you like her so much?
She was the sweetest girl. Like because you didn't watch that show,
Yeah.
the storyline that developed is she was a sweetheart, and Malia Ward and Anastasia Ashley were playing the high school mean girls. And
Oh, really?
yeah. And so it was like Tia and her friend Brianna Cope from Kauai that were like, I don't know, we're just trying to like be friendly with these girls and they keep being mean to us. So Tia was the sweetheart who then also was the shredder who won the event.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, good for her. The reason I bring her up is because you know who broke the internet this week?
No, who?
Besides President Zelensky, who, by the way, is move over Dave Chappelle. President Zelensky is my new favorite comedian.
Awesome.
Koa Smith broke the internet, man. Koa Smith, his Instagram. Did you see Koa Smith at Pipe last week? Holy shit.
He's gnarly. He is a madman.
And he's got great content. Like he's good at what he does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do know.
Tia Blanco he's a good guy.
I was waiting for you to tie this back to Tia. Is that the tie-in?
Yeah, that's the tie. He's like the sweet Tia Blanco dude.
Yeah.
And he rips.
This is popular on the internet. I don't think it's ever been said on this podcast, but the comparison between him and Gary Busey is undeniable. He is a young Gary Busey.
Man,
I'll send you.
That's not going to bode well for him later in life.
Well, Gary's done some hard living. Let's put.
Yeah.
I mean,
Koa
seems to live a much healthier life. Anyways, I'll send you a side-by-side image later in the show. So yeah, Tia. Real quick before we go to Koa, heat number 3.
I'm still on Koa.
We're not done with Tia.
Okay,
go ahead.
Koa or Zeke Lau? Who would you rather see on tour for the remainder of the year?
Koa, probably.
I mean, has he inspired you at all?
Not at all. And
Not
Koa,
really.
Koa does inspire me. Koa absolutely shreds.
He almost beat Slater.
He almost beat Zeke. He almost beat Zeke at the Ultimate Surfer. I think they were the last two standing.
They were. That's why I brought it up. Not that I watched.
But he is a lot more exciting. He's very exciting to watch. His small wave backhand game is amazing. Obviously, pipe. Heat number 3, though, in the women's event in Portugal is Tia, Carissa, and Steph. How's that? That's
like Nobel Peace Prize all in one heat. You know what I mean? Like we've got good folks here.
Well, it is the hardest draw you could possibly get for a wild card. Like Tia getting her first CT event, and in heat 1, she's faced against 11 world titles.
She's got Mother Carissa, Princess Di, Stephanie, and Tia. Man, she's got a tough heat.
She's got 11 world titles against her in that heat.
11 world titles, Tia.
How crazy is that?
Don't let that bother you.
No big deal. Okay, so additionally, Gabe out of Portugal. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think he's out for the rest of the season? Any ideas?
Well, did you see his little Instagram live thing that he did?
I
I
didn't
didn't
know.
either, but a bunch of my friends did, and they sent me a bunch of texts about it. And it was basically, I don't want to say the wrong thing here, but let's just say that a mental year might be a good idea.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's
I'll
seen,
leave
what
it
did
at
he
that.
seem
I'll leave
like?
it at that.
Ah, no, you can't. Give
Well,
me
I don't
in
want
the
to,
politest terms possible.
he was, according to my friends, and I didn't see it,
Yes. Yeah.
he was,
According to the general managers.
yeah, I'll refer to the general managers. He was, how shall I say, maybe overly excited.
Intoxicated.
You said it, not me.
Okay. Inebriated.
Yeah, but
Got it. Not on alcohol.
right. Thank
Okay.
you.
I'm going to
But
say the things that he was not on. He was not high on life.
well, I mean, again, I don't like, it's not cool to just disparage somebody's reputation on the podcast like this, but I'm just saying that that's what I'm hearing. But
I like how people go on social media and post the most insane, inane, like sensational things. There's nothing we could say that would disparage them. They're out there doing it themselves.
but for the record, I don't,
I know.
I don't
I
want
get
to be, yeah, it's like, it's rude to be that guy, but I'm just saying that parking lot chatter, which is, by the way, a bunch of bullshit anyway, just my friends going, oh, hey, look at him. You know,
It sometimes cuts
they
through
should
all
look
the
at
BS.
themselves, man. My friends
Oh,
need
that
to
has
look in the
nothing.
mirror.
That has nothing to do with anything. I mean, you're right. It is BS often, but it often cuts through the BS harder and faster than any measured commentary can. So I am taking this as whole truth and agreeing. Gabriel Medina, take a year off. We don't mind. This gives Kelly Slater a better shot at the top 5. So
Yes.
that's good.
Yes.
Well, so because Gabe's out, guess who's in?
Baron Mamiya?
Boom.
No,
Baron
Kyle.
Kyle. Kaio's also in. So Baron and Kaio are both in. That's the crazy thing is Baron Mamiya is in first place, and he would not have entry into Portugal without Gabriel having withdrawn,
Yeah,
which is also a crime. And so, I mean, it just worked out that way, but you do wonder, like, if Moana, if it was, is it gender related at all? Like if Moana, she were a male, or this same situation was on the male side, would they make accommodation?
Yeah, it's weird because you look at Baron and you're like, this guy is a small wave wizard. Like he's won NSSA National. Like this guy, we know he's competitively savvy, so he's in no matter what. Whereas Mamiya, like, oh well, she's just a pipe specialist, and
Yeah.
let's just brush that under the rug.
Well, Baron and Kaio are both in. Baron's in first, Kaio's in third. They both have enough points already to likely make the mid-year cut. So this is kind of interesting because they're not guaranteed entry into the Australian leg of the tour, but they could have enough. I know, it really is. And so they could have enough. They already do have enough points in theory to make the second half of the season. So it'd be super weird if they didn't get into the wild card spots into the next couple of events, but then they're qualified for the rest of the season. Do they get access into those events?
You got to cut off the last 2 people in the event. I'm sorry,
but you absolutely do. These are the guys who are setting the world ablaze, drawing the best narratives for your story, and you're just going to boot them.
You're a failure as a league if you're booting number 1 and number 4 off of
number 3.
Tour.
Yeah,
because you're 4.
So, okay, is it tied?
Well, no, yeah, there's a tie for second, so it's third,
yeah.
I guess.
So Carlos Munoz is out, of course, with injury. Liam O'Brien. Oh, by the way, your check's in the mail for that bet.
Oh, thank you.
Carlos Munoz, Jake Marshall. I mean, I literally tried to send a PayPal today, and they said they're like, we're holding pending payment for us to look into this to make sure it's not suspicious or something.
They're like, that bet was bullshit.
I think because I put the word bet in the caption, maybe they flagged it. Anyways, Carlos Munoz, Liam O'Brien, and Yago Dora are all out because of injury. So the wild cards for the men's side, Matt McGillivray, Vasco Ribeiro, who's the highest rated Portuguese surfer, which just seems insane to me. Justin Bursett, who's the WSL event wildcard, also seems insane to me. And Alfonso Atunes, who's the sponsors wildcard.
Well, again, like, so my question is, let's say there was no injuries, right? And you've got these two guys, Aaron Mamiya and Kyle Ubeli. Like, what's the contingency here? Like, I'm sure that if they don't have one, this is your wake-up call, guys, to make sure you have one. Because we all want to see Kyle and Barron, if in fact they continue this role. But even if they don't, if, like you say, they're already qualifying for the mid-year cutoff. If they do the rest of the events and get equal 19ths or equal 33rds or whatever it is, they'll probably still make the cut. Did Stab do the math on this too?
No.
Well, somebody needs to, because, I mean, again, we're making a problem that doesn't exist right now, but I would like for them to be able, that would,
like you said, contingency. You want to have a plan in place.
Yeah, we want to know that these stories, you can't take a world title possibility away from these guys after they've proven themselves at Pipe and Sunset. Are you kidding me?
And it's not to do those guys a favor. It's to benefit your own business. Like, again, you're right. You need a
but it is an injustice.
You do need the contingency in place, because your greatest hope at the first events of the season was that the wild cards would come from behind and win it. And your greatest hope has happened. So you want to be able to plan for how to continue to let that storyline develop.
Yeah.
So interestingly, I thought this article was going to be lame, but it was actually really kind of insightful. It was on Stab Magazine. They wanted to get the thoughts on Kelly Slater from 4 kind of insiders. And so the 4 insiders are Jake Patterson, great person to ask thoughts on Kelly looking at the rest of the season. Jake Patterson, he's been a coach for a very long time. Jake Patterson
should be a part of the commentary. Jake Patterson
absolutely
is the John McEnroe that the WSL needs. Give him a mic, let him say whatever he wants, and just sit back and let the viewership go through the roof. They're stupid not to have Jake Patterson in there. And, I know, like a couple, 3 or 5 years ago, they're afraid, but they shouldn't be. It's the greatest thing that could happen to the WSL. If they don't get Jake Patterson and more people like him qualified and also brutally honest, they're blowing it, man. We need the John McEnroe in the booth. We need the, Johnny Miller in golf. He was the guy, and all the guys on tour were like, oh shit, what did Johnny say about me? And that's what they would all say about Jake, and none of them would have the balls to go up to Jake and flip him off, because Jake would snap their neck.
And he'd be out with them at Sunset battling for set waves, or Margaret River, or any Pipe, anywhere.
Absolutely.
And telling them what they're doing wrong competitively in heats, because he's actually more strategic than they are. So
it's the biggest Travis mockery. I'm saying it right now. We need a hashtag to get Jake Patterson into the booth more often than not.
Get Jake into Portugal.
Jake into Portugal and just let him go.
So Jake, Lisa Anderson, photographer Ryan Miller, and then Stab Magazine's own Michael Ciamarella. They gave them the same form questions about Kelly Slater, like, will he make the top 5? Will he have a shot at a world title this year? Blah, blah, blah. Will he retire next year?
Keep going. Don't let me stop you.
I want you to listen.
Oh yeah, I want to hear this.
This is for you.
Okay.
I'll cut the dead air.
Yes, sir.
So ultimately, I'll give you a synthesis of what all the answers were. Nobody thinks that Kelly's going to retire this year or next.
Wow.
All 4 of those people, who are, certainly 3 of them, Michael excluded, are good friends with Kelly. So they probably have some insights. They don't think Kelly's retiring this year or next.
Why?
So because,
what is their reasoning?
Well, because of the role that he's on this year, he won't retire. And then next year, of course, if they are planning to start at Pipeline again, he's the current Pipe champ, and he'd be coming off of a banner season, presumably. Like, no, definitely not going to retire. They also all think that he's a shoo-in for the top 5 at lowers this year. which
Wow.
I thought was interesting. I thought there'd be a little back and forth about that one because I'm not convinced that he will be, but all of them said, oh yeah, he'll be there for no problem. But then none of them think that he'll win the title there. All of them think that he's totally outclassed at lowers, and that lowers, the kind of surfing at lowers, especially the surfing we saw last year, has gotten to a level that Kelly doesn't
Yeah.
exist on anymore.
Yeah.
And I think Snake was the one saying, like, you got to be doing 2 full rotation airs, huge carve, and then a strong finish, and you get an 8.
Yeah. It's true. You got to do something on your first turn out the back that's magnificent.
Yeah.
And this is a great reason why, guess what? They should finish at a wave of consequence. I was thinking about this the other day. Just think if they had the top 5 at Pipeline.
I know. I've told you that.
Why don't I know?
Start the year there and end the year there.
Yeah,
Boom.
the top 5 at Pipeline.
Yeah.
That would be so sick. And do it
Insane.
in December, by the way. Let's do it December. Same holding period we used to have, the 7th through the 20th. And then start in late January and start the season. You still got a month, and you got plenty of time, by the way, from the, end of August or whatever it is. You got 3 months to build up the hype around it. Anyway, continue with the article.
It's a no-brainer. By the way, forget about the first and the last. Let's do all 11 events at Pipeline.
Because I do.
We can go to Sunset, I guess, for a little bit. We'll come back.
How much fun would that be? How much pressure would it be if you're one of the other 4 guys and Kelly's in the top 5 in the events at Pipe? Because the problem with lowers, and this is true of even other surfers, like for instance, Connor Coffin, you're kind of going, I don't think Connor even has a chance at lowers.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and if it was like, who was the big keg guy? Like if Wade Carmichael was in the top 5, you'd be like, no way he has a chance. You know what I mean? You got to be one of these light-footed aerialists to even have a chance to win the world title, which is stupid. I think it's
stupid.
Lame.
But everything's backwards right now.
Yeah.
Everything's so backwards right now. It's not even worth discussing. Like, we get into the minutia. It's almost like, God, it's almost offensively backwards. But we learned that in Hawaii, like, throw everybody out into pumping surf and it solves all the problems. At any rate, I thought it was interesting that they all thought that Kelly would even be in the top 5. They asked him what events he would do well at, which events they expected him to not do well at. And obviously he would do well at Chopu. Everybody thinks he would do well at G-Land because he has more experience there than probably anybody else on tour. I think that's a safe bet. We need to keep in mind, he often doesn't go to Brazil. He often finds a reason to not go to Brazil. El Salvador is a huge question mark for me with Kelly Slater. Portugal, he traditionally doesn't do well at, and Margaret's a real question mark. So the fact that they think that he would end up in the top 5, there's more question marks there than there are exclamation points.
Yeah, look, I think he does pretty good at Bells.
Yeah,
I would say Bells, and I would say J Bay. He's probably a quarterfinalist at worst.
Yeah.
For sure, Rio's a no-go. Throw that one away. Margaret River interests me because if it's at the box or if it's at North Point, there's potential there for him to do really good, really well, right? Of course, G-Land, Chopu.
But you say that even Margaret River or the box, he's not my top picks.
I'm just saying, look, all we want is quarterfinals and semifinal finishes. If you're looking at 5ths and 7ths and 9ths and 3rds and 5ths and 9ths, and oh, by the way, we get a first at Chopu and we get a second at G-Land.
We got a first at Pipe.
Well, I know, on top of that.
Yeah.
So we got a first, 2 firsts, a third. And I mean, if you look at past world titles, it's usually like, it's like that. It's like you maybe get 2 firsts and you get like second, third, 5th, 7th, 9th, and then one shitty throwaway. And
we're just talking about getting into the top 5, not even a world title. So you need less.
Oh, that's right.
Because Connor Coffin didn't win anything last year. Morgan Siblick didn't win, right? He made finals, but he didn't win.
You know what? Rip Curl needs to call up the WSL and just go, look, we're a friggin' surf company. We're going to end this thing at Pipeline. Yeah. Ending this thing at Lowers is a huge mistake. We did it once. Okay, we all understand you've got to be a light-footed aerialist guy to do this. if they're concerned that there aren't enough performance waves on tour, that this is the only place where they get to showcase this type of surfing, then put lowers on the tour in August.
I would love lowers on the tour. We just don't need it as the finals event.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we'll keep updates on Kelly, obviously, throughout the season. It is an exciting storyline. I'm glad to see it. Apparently, Box to Box Films is following Kelly around for this season to make a documentary about him. They're the ones who have the deal with Apple TV for the documentary series following the world tour. Portugal opens up tomorrow, March 3rd. So tomorrow and a half.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Well, it's 2 days. It's 2 days for us, but it's only a day away for a lot of the world. Do you have a survival pick locked in yet?
I do. I've locked in my pick. It's a great pick. This guy's going to do really well. I'm excited about my pick. Do you want to know who it is?
Yeah. Who and why did you pick Felipe Toledo?
I will not be telling you because I don't want to tip my hand. I will tell you next week when, this event has already gotten through that area, that round.
Right, well, I will tell everybody.
I know who your pick is. It's Kanoa.
I already told you last week. Kanoa is in peak form, and he spends more time in Portugal than most people on tour.
I'm sensing
that's all you need.
I'm sensing the old too comfortable backlash. Like, yeah, I love sleeping in my bed with my chick. Oops, the alarm clock didn't go off. What? I missed my heat. Everyone right now, for the rest of the week, we're going to be rooting for Kanoa to go down in a blaze of glory.
Good.
All of us that are in survival league, survival league. Unfortunately, you can only play it if you started playing it at the beginning of the year.
Suckers.
But you and I are still in it. And what do we win?
3K. The winner gets 3K at the end of the season and three Panda surfboards.
Hey, so here's my question to you. Like, who are we rooting against? Like, I'm definitely rooting against Kanoa.
Interesting.
Like, obviously we're rooting against the guy that's going to have the most picks by us. Kanoa could be that guy. I'm going to root against Kanoa.
It's funny. I don't have anybody I'm rooting against other than like these little side bets that we do. But
you definitely want the top guys to lose because that's, a lot of people pick Jordy or a lot of people pick, who?
Yeah.
I bet, who's getting a lot of picks? I bet Owen Wright.
Idolo. Oh, why Owen?
Because Super Tubes is kind of a fast. I know.
Your brain is registering Owen Super Tubes because he busted his eardrum there, not because he's won there.
Well, okay, maybe I'm wrong, but anyway, there are guys that we're going to be rooting against, and it's usually the top guys that you didn't pick, right? Anybody but the guy you picked.
The funny thing is, whoever has the most picks on Survival League, I want out, obviously, other than Kanoa. But I'm thinking through the list right now. I'm not rooting against Idolo. I'm not rooting against Jordy. I'm not rooting against John. Not rooting against Felipe. I'd be happy with any of those guys pushing through.
What if they're going up against Kanoa in the round of 32?
Then I want them out, obviously, in that case.
What if Justin Becret wins the whole thing as a wild card? Does that mean because Baron Mamiya got it?
Send him to Australia. You know what I mean? Like if he wins, send him to Australia. We'll have a battle of wild cards.
I mean, it kind of needs to be clarified. Like if you win an event as a wild card, you should just get in for the rest of the season. I think that's fair.
That'd be epic, dude. That's an epic gift.
That's a great gift.
That's way better than winning the Ultimate Surfer. And the Ultimate Surfer gets 3 wild cards.
Let me ask you this event, we're in Europe for the one and only event of the year in Europe. They should be doing something about acknowledging Putin's war in Ukraine. And, do you think that there should be something? I mean, dude, they're in Europe. I mean, Europe's freaking out. Like, it's way different in Europe than it is here. What do you think? Should there be a moment of some acknowledgement on some level officially from the WSL? A lot of sports leagues are doing a lot of stuff. There's a lot going on.
I'll tell you what. I can offer the WSL a lot of advice. I don't know that PR is my area of expertise, so
This isn't even PR. This is just honest from the heart. Children are getting killed by Putin. Friggin' acknowledge.
I don't think the WSL does well at doing that. I feel like so much of it comes off as
It's completely fake.
virtue signaling.
Yeah.
And so you're saying it should be completely from the heart. Well, how do you tell somebody to have something from the heart? They either have it from the heart or they don't.
When you don't have a heart. Oh, drop the
You,
mic.
and so who would make that statement, and where would they make? The commentators would make it by, being signaled by the tower, being signaled by Eric Logan or somebody from corporate. Then
How
it's
about
not
this?
from the heart because they're just the spokesperson.
How
Does
about
Eric
we
Logan come on
offer-
and give some message?
No,
That'd be
hell
weird
no.
too.
No.
You know what I mean? Like,
you don't do that. Here's what you do. You offer Ukrainian flags. If you want to stick it on your board, you can. If you don't, that's fine too. But we have Ukrainian flag stickers for you. If you're so moved, put a sticker on the nose of your board so that everyone can see it. Or even better than that, what they're doing, I think in one of the soccer leagues, one of the football leagues, is they're putting the Ukrainian flag on the jersey.
Yeah, and
everyone's jersey.
Tyler Wright rocks that flag on her jersey. I forget what they call it.
A Ukrainian flag? Tyler Wright does?
It's not the Ukrainian flag. It's like the equality flag of some sort.
Yeah.
It has a very specific name and I can't think of it, but she rocks that on her shoulder. Yeah, they could absolutely put the Ukrainian flag on all the jerseys.
Yeah,
and then give the surfers the option whether or not they want to pick the jersey with the flag.
Yes, done.
Yeah, I like it.
They Scott. Better get a stitch in right now.
Exactly. So moving on from the WSL and CT competition?
Yes.
Are you watching Stab in the Dark?
I am. I've watched both of them so far.
I'm so glad that you're caught up. It took me a minute to get caught up, but it's Jack Robinson. He's surfing, I think 12 boards in Hawaii in marginal surf for the most part, but they're meant to be high performance short boards. So surfing them in, not 8 to 10 foot waves, smaller waves. But how in the world can anybody identify the shaper just based on the look and feel of a pointy thruster? They give him 13. They say, walk up here and feel them out and identify who's who and what's what. Here's the 13 names so you can just plug and play. How can anybody in the world do that, Scott?
I mean, these guys they know their equipment, they really do.
Unbelievable.
I think he got 8, right? Did he get 8?
He got 7 out of 13.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. But you're right, 8, because after that shot, they were in the house. And before he went surfing, he did identify the Cabianca. He thought it was the Timmy Patterson previously, but before he surfed it, he goes, I thought this was the Timmy, but I think this is the Cabianca. So he got 8.
Yeah.
It's freaking unreal. He's just walking amongst them. They all look identical from the camera's angle. And you and we'd be able to identify a Morning of the Earth board, because those are a certain level of girth and they're a certain style.
Yeah.
But if they're all pointy thrusters, what the heck, dude? Like, he's noticing these tiny adjustments, and they're all pretty similar volume. So it's kind of like, the volume's distributed 6 inches from the nose instead of 7 inches from the nose,
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it, that he has the ability to do that? But I understand it. I think when you're on that level, I think that's the way it is with a lot of sports, that Tom Brady can tell how much, the exact amount of pounds per square inch of football is inflated, and golfers can tell, if it's a stiff shaft or an extra stiff shaft or whatever. And tennis players, I'm sure that they're so at such a high level, that it's mind-boggling that they can pull it off.
He identified the JS based on smell.
That's epic.
Did you see that? He literally sniffed it and he goes, "It smells like a JS." Anyways, the shapers involved this year are Matt Biolis, John Pizell, Chili, Merrick, specifically Britt Merrick, JS, DHD, Axel Lorenz under the Pukas label, Timmy Patterson, Cabianca, Sharp Eye, Takoro, Arakawa, and Pang. And in a very bizarre turn of events, they said, you have to axe one of these just based on feel. You're not even going to get to wax it up. And so he axed
I actually liked
Pang.
that. I actually liked that. I thought that was kind of cool. However, I was bummed for Glenn Pang.
Of course.
And here's what's interesting. So I sent a text to Ashton. I'm like, hey, digging the Stab in the Dark. Good job. Well done. Enjoying it so far. I would really like you to reintroduce the Pang to Jack in one of the episodes.
Too late.
And no, he's like, Scott, you know me too well. You know us too well. Like, he didn't say that that's what they're going to do, but he's just like, hold on to your horses here. Pang's still involved somehow. So
Good.
I think in one of these episodes, they're going to be like, hey, wax this one up, and maybe they'll throw it in as a wild card in the finalist or something like that.
That'd be smart. And how many times has a board proved you wrong?
A bunch of times, almost every time.
It happens.
It happens for me more often than not. You see a pretty little sexy supermodel and you wax it up and it's a dog. And then you see,
Carry on with this analogy.
relaxed fit jeans and you put those on and you're like, I'll never take these off. And I know they're kind of big and stupid looking and they're bell bottoms, but I'm wearing them because they're comfortable.
Those were mixed metaphors, but I
I didn't want to, that's where I'm at my greatest, when I'm mixing metaphor.
This is a family show.
Right.
For dudes with dad bods specifically.
Oh my God, I've got the gnarliest sourdough bod. I just had 2 Haagen-Dazs ice cream chocolate bars before we went on the air.
Are you kidding?
Not kidding.
Midday, a
2
twofer?
bars.
Dude, I feel guilty if I have one and it's at night after a meal. I can't do desserts during the day. It'll be
first of all, there's no
all
guilt.
over.
There'll be no guilt here. It's part of my diet plan regime.
The plan, no plan.
Where were we?
So
Stab in the Dark.
The episode 1 included, I said the name of the shapers, but there was 3 boards that were tested out in episode 1. The Cabianca, the Timmy Patterson, and the Pukas. The Cabianca and the Timmy Patterson are out of competition. Jack did not like them. The Pukas is into the final. Let's talk about the Cabianca. This is Johnny Cabianca. He's used to shape under Pukas. He's been shaping Gabriel Medina's boards since Gabriel Medina started winning everything in sight. They are known very specifically for being very different, specifically for having a lot of volume, but also in the tail area, like really thick tails, really wide tails, and just more volume than anything that anybody else is making. What do you think of these boards?
Well, I really don't know. I mean, I've never ridden them. I've seen Johnny's boards at the boardroom show, and I've met John. He's a great guy, super good guy. But I really can't speak to the boards. Me personally, I want a wide point up. I mean, I'm 56 years old. I want the wide point up from forward, and I want an extremely thin, foiled out tail. I want it, so I'm not the guy to ask.
Have you ever seen one of those boards in the water?
No, I don't think so.
Me neither. Have you ever seen a Cabianca under anybody's feet other than Gabriel Medina?
Well, this is a good question. I see where you're going with this. They don't exist.
They don't exist.
Like
I mean, they probably do in Brazil, like.
Well, they do in Europe.
Don't.
That's what Johnny's making all his boards out of Europe. So I bet in France they're everywhere.
Okay,
and in Portugal.
I haven't ever seen those boards, so I can't speak to how other people ride them. I've only seen Gabriel ride them, and obviously he's a phenom, but it makes me want to see Gabriel ride other boards. When I've seen, I think he's been involved in 2 different Stab in the Darks now. And after watching Jack Robinson ride his boards, and it looked like dog crap because they're so different than the boards that Jack normally rides, I'm like, what would Gabriel look like on a Mayhem? It would open up the possibilities.
Mikey Ciamarella does a good job in these things, right? Yeah. And he sort of has the right amount of self-deprecation too,
Mm-hmm.
But he was comparing the Cabiancas and the way Gabe surfs to, was it Idolo?
Yeah.
And how they're just different surfers, right?
He said Idolo and Gabe are similar style of surfers in that they're centered over their board, and they use the way that they surf, the board planes on the surface of the water. So he was saying it's akin to a wakeboarder,
right? The
way that a wakeboard moves over the water. And he's absolutely right. When they cut the footage, it's crystal clear. And then he said the style of surfing that Jack Robinson or John Florence is doing is much more akin to a water skier, where they're really leaning on the rail. And so they're not planing over the top of the water. They're carving into the wave and transitioning rail to rail rather than just like pushing off the fins and gliding forward. And so you want narrow tails, thinner tails, so that it can navigate those turns, the turning radius a little bit tighter. And I was like, man, he did a phenomenal job. The graphics and the cutaways helped explain that a lot. But does Gabriel surf that way because he's been riding those boards, or did Johnny develop that style of board because of the way that Gabriel surfs?
Yeah, I don't know. My takeaway from that is I go, gosh, I don't really want to surf like those two guys.
Me neither.
I want to surf like John and like Jack Robinson. I want to keep the rail buried, and really we just want to surf like Tom Curran, which is what that is.
Well, those guys, they surf more skatey.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
exactly.
like a tic-tac skateboard thing, but the benefit of that wider girthy tail is it's a bigger landing pad. So when they're doing these giant airs, it's like you have a lot more room to land on.
Yeah, they've widened up the noses a lot for that too, though.
Yeah. Well, episode 2 featured Mayhem, Takoro, Arakawa, Sharp Eye, and Chili. And Mayhem's in. Everybody seems to like Mayhem's in every series of Stab in the Dark that they do. Takoro is out. He liked the board, but he buckled it really early. So the board's out. Interestingly, Eric Arakawa has been shaping boards for Jack Robinson for a very long time, not exclusively, but they have a long relationship. And I'd say the tightest relationship of anybody that Jack's works with. He surfed well on that board, but ultimately he identified it as the Arakawa and ultimately eliminated it from competition very diplomatically. They even asked him, how do you feel about eliminating your shaper's boards, essentially? And Jack's like, look, it is what it is. I like the board. I like some of these other boards better. Eric and I have always had a very open relationship and open in dialogue, and he wants me to be honest with him about what I'm feeling. This is what honesty looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, that was cool. I dug that. I dug that when he did that. And I dug that they asked him that question, because I was like, oh, I'd like to hear some follow-up about that. And that was the first and only thing they really asked him about. Oh, they did ask him a couple other things. I will say this regarding Mayhem. Have you ever had a Mayhem?
Oh, yeah.
I've never had a Mayhem that I didn't love.
Yeah.
And I've probably had 4 or 5 of them. And I've never had a bad one. I've never had one where I've always been like, shit, I like this board.
Yeah, me too. I've only ever had the short, like pointy thrusters, and I haven't had one in probably 8 years. So I probably got my first one when I was like 17 or something. But yeah, I've always felt the exact same way that you feel.
And you know what's really cool is that Mayhem and I are like more or less the same age, and we're kind of on the same wavelength regarding surfing. So he's making boards for himself, which are like as high performance as they can kind of possibly be for a guy like he and I that are, $190 or whatever we weigh. So I'm kind of right on the wavelength. You know what I mean? I could just be like, hey, Matt, what's the hot new board you're riding? And he'll be like, oh yeah, I'm doing this. It's kind of like that, but more volume, blah, blah, blah.
You should start taking fashion advice from him.
No, dude, I got a good look. It's called dorm room floor.
I'm not shaming your look. I'm commenting on his reinvention.
Well, again, dorm room floor pretty much trumps everything.
I saw it first at the boardroom show, but then in this video piece, I was reminded he's got some super snazzy frames and tinted lenses. He's got all the salt and pepper in his beard, which he's grown out a little bit. He's like elevated his wardrobe a little bit. I don't know if he's even wearing lost clothing anymore.
That's going to be on that's got to be on the wife, dude. That's the wife taking over. I know how.
You know what I'm talking about, though, right?
Oh yeah. He looks kind of like. He looks like he should be a diplomat somewhere or something. You know what I mean? Like
in Miami?
No, he looks more like a European. You know what I mean? Like a State Department official in Brussels or something.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's way hipper than that. I'm seeing him on a yacht in Saint-Tropez.
Okay, well, State Department officials go on yachts, so.
Okay, they do different things. Actually, they probably do the same exact thing. Anyways, I've got a few minutes left in that episode, so I didn't see how the Sharp Eye or the Chili fared. Do you remember?
Yeah, Sharp Eye's in.
Okay, that would make sense. He won the Mexico event last year on a Sharp Eye.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Sharp Eye's in. I mean, I watched it, but I just kind of,
Yeah. Well, I'm loving this series. I'm loving Jack Robinson as the surfer, and Stab continues to kill it on these premium pieces.
I'm pretty sure the sharp eye's in. Maybe the chili's in.
Hmm.
The chili looked weird to me. Have you ever, when you watch him, you're like, oh, I don't think he's gonna like this board. This board doesn't look like it's working good. And then he comes in, he goes, yeah, I liked it. I'm like, what?
Totally.
Didn't even look like it worked that good. And
Totally.
then you see him ripping on one. You're like, oh, I think he's gonna like this one. It's really sparky.
Yeah.
The Mayhem specifically, when he rode the Mayhem, you're like, oh, this board looks good.
Totally. How good does that guy surf?
He surfs good.
It's incredible.
Good. Yeah.
It's incredible. I'm watching it and like I'm like fully picking up so many little tips and pointers.
Who's your favorite surfer on tour? If you could surf like any of these guys right now.
Ethan Ewing.
Ethan Ewing. Good answer. That's my answer.
Kelly Slater too.
No. Ethan Ewing. He's Tom Curran 2.0 mixed with, he's got some spark. Who does
Andy,
mix?
dude. It's
Andy, that's right.
All the way.
That's right. Oh my God. Can you imagine Tom Curran mixed with Andy Irons? It doesn't get any better now.
Andy had Tom Curran mixed in him already.
Andy was a little more, what's the word? He's a little more flamboyant than Curran.
Yeah. Way more flamboyant, but he had Curran in his DNA.
Right. He watched plenty of. Yeah.
Here's a question for you. In their heyday, Andy or Bruce?
I think Andy.
A lot of me loves Bruce, man. When he was really at his zenith, he was, so stylish.
Jack's kind of like Bruce. Jack Robinson has a little bit of Bruce Irons in him.
Especially in barreling surf. His kind of way that he navigates backside especially reminds me of Bruce.
What's the greatest moment in Bruce Irons' career?
Winning. Did he win the Eddie?
Yeah, going left in the short break.
Yeah, that's what it was.
That's the most incredible thing.
Well, I was going to say the short break
going left.
I was going to say the short break wave at the Eddie, but I wanted to phrase it as he winning the Eddie, but I wasn't sure if he actually won the event with that or not.
Yeah.
Well, moving on. By the way, Stab Premium, worth the investment. Go check out the Stab in the Dark series that they're doing. And then I also want to give a word of acknowledgement to the flooding that's happening, as I mentioned at the top of the show, in Australia, Queensland and New South Wales. The town of Lismore, specifically just west of Lennox, has experienced the worst floods in their history. 46 feet of water.
What? 46 feet?
14 meters of water. Maurice Cole just posted an Instagram of a McDonald's.
I saw
how they have, they have those signs that are like way up so you can see them no matter where you are in traffic. Yeah. The thing is almost submerged. The thing is that thing has to be, I would say, based on knowing 46, it has to be 50 feet tall. Yeah. All but the top 8 feet are submerged. And they show photos of it previously on a sunny day. You're like, yeah, that's a normal McDonald's sign that's 50 feet tall. And then the photo shows that being not fully, but almost submerged. 16,000 people are thought to be displaced in the ongoing flooding. 7 people have been confirmed dead in Queensland. It's the most severe flooding in history. Joel Parkinson, Ryan Hipwood, Mikey Wright have all dispatched their skis and they're running rescues through this area just to go literally drive into town, see if anybody's drowning and needs help, pull them up on the ski and get them to safety.
That's cool. Those guys are my Duke Kanamoku of the week.
Crazy. Yeah, I fully agree. Ocean levels, scientists talk about ocean levels rising. Scott, have you noticed any of this happening in your area of Southern California?
I mean, if you didn't, mention it, if there wasn't like climate change and sort of contemporary culture, I can't say that I'm like, oh yeah, look at how incredibly high the water is now relative to 5 years ago. Like, because I mean, frankly, first of all, the winters has been crappy. Like we had 3 or 4 or 5 bad winters in a row regarding surf. And so I'm thinking back to El Nino years when the surf was huge during king tides and the water was rushing over the 101 freeway.
Yep.
And that hasn't happened in a long time.
Yep.
And in fact, where I live, they've put in a bunch of, I forget what it's called, but it's basically like, berms and growth, beach growth. And the beach is bigger where I live, but that's just sort of an anomaly. I mean, they do pump a ton of sand there.
It's man mitigated.
Right. No, for sure.
Yeah. I haven't noticed either. And I experienced what you talk about where, I remember flooding happening during specific winter storms and that not happening for the last 10 years or whatever. But I do notice all the beaches changing. They're very different than they were when I was young, but I don't know if that's on the
negligible.
projection. Yeah. And it's also not necessarily on the projection of global warming or any of that stuff. It's just normal cycles that
we live
go
in
through.
Our coastline is erosional. The Florida coastline is depositional. These are 2 different types of coastlines. Ours erodes, theirs gets deposits. That's why they have those sandbars off North Carolina. That's, the Outer Banks is the Outer Banks because sandbars shift. That's why there were shipwrecks there all the time.
Yep.
We live in a depositional coast. It's just, an erosional coastline. That's just the nature of the beast. It's going to erode away and it has forever and it's going to continue to.
Yep. Very good. See, educational show as well.
Holy mackerel.
Well, those guys are Dukes. My must-see moment, I don't know if you've seen this. This just got posted in the last few hours. Killian Guerin at Hossiger. This is a kid who I had never heard of before. The regular footer who freaking Hail Mary bomb drops into this like triple, quadruple overhead wave at Hossiger. The thing's a full-on closeout, and he navigates out the doggy door. Actually gets absolutely annihilated after he navigates out the doggy door. But it really might be the biggest wave ever paddled into at Hossiger. He said that he was the only surfer out there. You see this, it's like insanely massive Hossiger, but also
perfect.
Victory at sea. Like really? Water moving go to Stab. If you could pull up Stab's Instagram account real quick.
Oh, Stab's
Insta account. Yeah. And it was, I don't know if it's the most recent post anymore, but it was an hour ago. It's anyways, this crazy day that you wouldn't even be able to make the paddle out of. Nobody would be able to make the paddle out on this day. And he somehow lucks into this wave. It is easily triple overhead, makes an insane drop, gets an insane barrel, and it is a closeout. So the doggy door end section is just triple overhead, heaving, and he doesn't even have enough momentum to get in front of it because you can't. It's that big of a wave. So he kind of just like ejects and tries to go out the bottom. But it was the gnarliest. It is an unbelievably heroically ridden wave.
Huh.
Did you get it?
I've got password issues.
Oh gosh. Should I just text it to you? I'm just going to cut this dead air. I'll text it to you right now. I always say I'm going to cut the dead air and then I forget to do it. All right. I just texted it to you. Pull up your phone.
Bear with me. Here it is coming up. Instagram, David, bada bing, opening it. Oh my God. Here we go. How about the bailout at the end is insane.
I just love that in surfing, there's unknown people. Maybe he's known, I don't know. I've never heard of him, but just doing stuff that's more insane than we're seeing the elite world tour surfers doing. You can still have these moments where you go from zero to hero in surfing. So I loved that clip.
Yeah, good stuff. That was a great clip.
Cool, man. I got to get back to baby duty.
Okay, well, look, until next time, David, adios and aloha.